Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all for joining us on this Saturday morning. There are many places you could be, but you chose to be here with us, and we thank you for that. So, Romany and I were discussing one day. This topic kind of popped into my head, and I asked her. I said, "Now, look, you know a lot of women,
Mm-hmm.
and some are married,
Mm-hmm.
some have been married,
Mm-hmm.
or in a long-term relationship, right? So, of the women you know, what percentage would you say are satisfied and happy in their relationship?"
Ron, I have to be honest with you. I think it's such a hard question to gauge a response to because women aren't honest. They don't want to tell you because guess what? That guy that they're not happy with,
He might be listening,
he
huh?
might be listening.
And that could be a problem.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I was looking at the Real Romany page, and I saw you got a number of responses,
Mhm.
right? So I think this topic kind of hits home with a lot of women, right?
Mhm.
Because there are a lot of women. And you know what? What we need to do is we need to have women call in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just get a sense of what percentage of women are truly happy. And let's throw another twist in there. Let's say happy, content, and satisfied,
Ooh.
right? Let's get to the nitty gritty, right? Because you might be happy in one area and content in another area, but
Unhappy.
satisfied, no.
And you might be unhappy in one area.
Right. So you're trying to balance it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unhappiness, and
Satisfaction.
satisfaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, like I've heard women say, you need three men, right? One for finance, one for conversation, and one for sex,
Mm.
right? So you only got one now, right? And he might be doing well in one area, but not so much in the other. So there's an imbalance there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we need women to call in today. Ladies, this is a show for you today, right? To talk about your situation, your level of happiness, your level of content, and how satisfied you are. So join us in the conversation. Number here is 888-304-4401. Again, 888-304-4401. And let us know what you think. And of course, you don't have to give your name because we don't want to start no trouble. But we do want to know what percentage of women are really happy. I mean, if you were to just throw out a number, what would you say?
I'm not even sure it's 50%.
Wow.
Look into the cameras.
Wow. That is, well, you know what, that's half. So you're thinking that half the women that you know are not satisfied completely, satisfied, content, and happy in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's take it a step further. So let's say there's 50% of women who are unhappy, who are not content, and unsatisfied. Of that 50%, how many of those women you think would step out on a relationship?
Ooh. I don't know because I always feel like
Look into the camera.
women aren't just naturally cheaters.
Look into the
Oh,
camera.
it's this way. Okay, I got to get used to the new setup. Women aren't naturally cheaters, right? So in order for a woman to cheat, things have to really get bad, right? Emotionally, things have to get bad. So I'm not going to just say, what percentage would go out and cheat. To me, the better question is really what makes us happy. What really makes a woman happy?
Okay. So you say women are not natural cheaters.
I heard people say otherwise, but
Okay, but let's explore that a little bit. Because if I were to ask you who cheats better, men or women, what would you say?
women, we do everything better.
Okay, so why would women be good at something they don't do?
Because we're good at everything.
No, but practice makes perfect, right? So in order to be good at this, right, you would have to have had some practice in order to perfect your art, right? You just don't wake up one day and know how to cheat and do it well. This is something that it takes time, it takes practice to perfect. But we're kind of, but that's the show for another day, right? But yeah, what makes a woman happy, right? And for men, from a male perspective, that's something we've been trying to figure out for eons. Because I've heard women say men are difficult to understand. Yet, I think that women are the most complex creatures on the planet.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. What a woman likes on Monday, she may not like on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, she may hate it. When it will say on Monday, she'll agree with you. Tuesday, completely opposite. So for us, from a male perspective, we really don't understand what's going on in the female brain. It's quite complicated. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much that we don't quite understand about the female psychology. Because we're talking about happiness in a relationship and being satisfied, right? So many women stay in relationships that are toxic, downright physically abusive. We're not really going to put up with that, but for so long. You know what I mean? I don't know. Now, let me state unequivocally that there are men that are victims of abuse in relationships. But for the most part, it is just the opposite. It is the woman that is the victim of abuse. And some women stay there for 10, 15, 20 years, knowing, right, full well, when you get home, this fool going to be waiting for me with a bat. And yet, something keeps them going back home, back to the abuser. See, we don't really understand that. We don't understand how a woman will see her husband or her boyfriend out with another woman and won't say nothing to the man, but will go attack the woman. We don't really understand that dynamic either. There's just so many moving parts that we don't understand. So since you mentioned what makes a woman happy, please tell us the secret.
Well, every time we discuss a potential topic, I talk to people. I try to do my little survey. In addition to on the Real Romanate page, I talk to people I know individually, male and female. And so you guys seems to be a consensus with you guys where you think we're never happy, or you think the list is just so ridiculous that it's unattainable, or happiness is unattainable. But then when I talk to women and then I sat and just put all the data together, I don't think men are different from women. I think that men and women are both looking for the same thing. We're looking for support, encouragement, and being there when I need you to be. I think that's the sum and total of it all. And I even had a conversation this morning about that. The sum and total is support, encouragement, and be there when I need you.
Okay. That's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
But it don't actually work that way. It doesn't. It doesn't. Because again, right? Like I said, what a woman may like on Monday, she may not necessarily like on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, she hates it, right? So sometimes it seems like there's not consistency, right? And then again, there are so many subtle things that happen that we as men don't take note of. And I think sometimes we're expected to take note of these things. And perfect example, you come home after a hard day, right? And your wife or your, significant other is sitting there. And clearly from the expression on the face, something is wrong. And you say, hey, baby, how you doing? I'm all right. Oh, okay. Everything all right? Fine. You sure? Yeah, everything's fine. But it don't look like it's, it doesn't look like you're fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay. So, you go take a shower, change clothes. You come back, she's still sitting there. You sure you're right? I'm fine. I told you. Okay. So if you're fine, why don't you look at it? Why is it seems as if something is wrong? Ain't nothing wrong. Okay, so you go and you watching the game, then she'll come sit next to you, staring at you. Hey, baby, everything all right? I told you it's fine. Okay, so it just doesn't seem like it's fine. If something's going on, why don't you tell me? Well, why don't you know? There you go. There you go. It's that why don't you know piece, right? That is the difficult part for us to decipher. We as men cannot be mind readers. So if there's something going on, you would think the best way to deal with a relationship is communication, right? So if there's something wrong, why not just say, okay, here's the situation. Okay, so why does that happen?
Well, first of all, in defense of the sisters, right?
Okay.
I think when a woman says to you, why don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
The woman is really saying, because the issue has to be about you and the woman, right? So obviously there's something going on between the two of you. So what she's really saying when she says, why don't you know? She's really saying, why aren't you in tune to what's going on in your relationship? Why aren't you in tune to the fact that we having a problem? So she's really calling you out because you're not in tune to what's going on.
Okay. I can respect that. However, why not just say, hey, look, we're not on the same page right now. Why don't we sit down and talk about it, right? Why don't we try to get back on the same page? Because the passive aggressive thing only seems to make matters worse, right? So why not just say, hey, look, let's sit down, let's talk a little bit, because I noticed that we're starting to drift in certain areas, right? We're not communicating as well as we used to. So why don't we sit down and talk about that? That would be the simple way to do it, but things don't work in a simple manner all the time, right? And it's not blaming anybody. What it is, we're socialized differently. We think differently, right? And no disrespect to anybody in, whether you're gay, whether you're whatever your sexual orientation is. If you are, in my opinion, born male, right? I don't know if you ever really understand and appreciate the thinking of a woman, right? I think it is something that is unique to females. And even though a man might be transitioning or, transgender, I don't think you will totally understand the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions of someone who's born female. And for guys, because we're socialized so differently, we think differently. We think from different places, right? That sometimes it's hard for us to truly understand. And sometimes that leads to the discontent. Sometimes that leads to the lack of satisfaction. I mean, Am I on the right track?
I don't know, because you guys make us sound very complicated, right? And you make it sound, not just you, men in general,
Mhm.
right? You guys make us sound like we're really difficult. Now, I was talking to the person that I consider my friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his response was, all I really want you to do is to pass me the plate and let's just chill out and watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, really? That's it?
Mm.
So there's no depth to, and he's like, no, we're real simple. We're real simple. And I said, well, the conversation piece, what happened to the conversation piece?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the conversation piece?
Well, this is what I think. He said we're real simple, right? Okay. You have 2 sons. So when you have a child, a boy, as that boy develops, for the most part, that little boy, you give him a toy, he's going to go off and play with that toy. You know, that will go on throughout probably elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
In junior high school, things will begin to change, right, as they mature. You know, noticing the opposite sex, if that's what appeals to them. They become more style conscious, stuff like that. Now let's juxtapose that with little girls. Okay, I have a daughter. When my daughter was in elementary school, she wanted to get her nails done. She wanted to get her hair done. A doll wasn't enough, right? No, I need to get my nails done, my hair done. They're style conscious so much earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whole different ways of looking at the world. You know, your son, when he's little, he ain't gonna ask you, you know, oh, I need the latest sneakers, I need this style, I need this dress. Well, your son wouldn't ask you that, but I need these jeans, stuff like that. But your daughter will, for sure, because, you know, there is that awareness much sooner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and people have said, right, women have said that girls seem to be more complicated, right, in terms of, you know, rearing them. So for me, or for any man, you know, not necessarily my situation, but for men who are raising daughters alone, it's difficult to be able to explain to them the changes in their bodies, right? We know what's supposed to happen, but the emotional side of it, we have no clue. You know what I mean? You can explain, okay, well, this is going to happen to you, but you've never experienced what it's like. So it's difficult to have that conversation and to understand the emotional changes that this young lady's going to go through
Mm-hmm.
as she develops.
Mm-hmm.
Boys, okay, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, so I know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? We can relate, but, you know, are women difficult for men to understand? For the most part, yeah. Absolutely. Even if you've been with a woman for a long time, there are sometimes things that will have you scratching your head like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, it's just something that, I think Jill Scott had a song, right? You know, some days women go through these things. You know what I mean? You know,
It's one of those days.
one of those days. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but think about the words that you guys use to describe us. Complicated,
Mm-hmm.
difficult to understand, complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not good words. And here's where I have the problem. And I need the ladies to like call in because I need some backup.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem. Not every woman struggles to communicate. Some women communicate very well, and then you guys don't want us to communicate. I think you want just that. You want us to just come sit down right here and just go along with everything and be quiet, right? And don't say anything about anything. And, the average woman who is secure in herself, and if she's a fluid thinker, she's not just going to sit next to you. There's a time and a place for her to sit next to you.
Mhm.
But then there's a time and a place for her to be vocal.
I agree with you 110%. I understand, right, that for some reason we think of women as the weaker sex, right? We think of women as lesser, right? Simply by virtue of having a penis, somehow that makes you superior, right? I mean, it's ridiculous,
Mhm.
right? But that is how our society has developed over the time. These are rules that are created by men
Mm-hmm.
to make life comfortable for men.
By men, for men.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
right? So I get it. Everybody needs to have a voice. Everybody needs to be heard, right? And listen, I don't disagree with that. I think that for a man that just needs a woman to just sit there and be quiet and not offer an opinion, not express herself, I think that dude's probably narcissistic,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And just wants eye candy, wants a woman to be seen,
And not heard.
and not heard,
Mhm.
right? I don't think that a man who's really interested in a woman and building a life with her, I don't think he wants a woman who's just going to sit there and be obedient. If that's the case, brother, get a dog. You know what I mean?
Or cats.
Yeah, or a cat.
Yes.
Get
Yes.
something. But if you're going to bring another human being into your life, that human being has opinions and thoughts and ideas that they want to share. And I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that, use words like complicated and difficult. Okay, those aren't necessarily bad words. They're just the way you
Complicated.
see things.
No, Ron. Complicated is not a good word. Complicated means I have to put extra effort. I have to sit and figure out, right? I'm scratching my head to try to figure it out. That's complicated.
But that's true.
And then here's the thing. Sometimes I think you guys say we're never happy, but I think sometimes you guys don't know what you really want. Because with that same person, I've been in a position where maybe I'm being who I am, the Capricorn, and I'm angry, so I digress, and and I become quiet. I don't say anything, and then it's, come on, I need you to say what you got to say. Just go ahead and say it. Like, I can't take this quiet thing. And then one day you say, that's it, I'm not going to be quiet anymore.
Oh boy.
And then it's like, okay, you're complaining. So like, what is it that you guys want? Do you want that? Because see, I can do that quiet thing naturally. It has nothing to do with me being a female.
Mm-hmm.
That's just who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I need that moment to kind of be quiet and calm down and process. Because after I process it all, I probably won't respond to it the same way. So I usually want to take that moment. But then when you're always pushing and encouraging me to speak up, and I want to know how you feel, and I want to say how you feel, and then I just black out on your ass, right? then you like, oh my God, what? So what is it that you want? Do you want the quiet, submissive? That's the new word. That's the new word among the brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants a submissive woman. That's why they dating the white women, the Asian women, and the Hispanic women. So you guys say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want that submissive woman, or do you want the woman who has somewhat of a voice? And how about this one? I'm going to say this. People might get mad, but I think that that strong, independent sister, African American sister, she really has what you need to encourage you. That quiet, silent, submissive
Mm-hmm.
woman that you guys always talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think she has what's needed to support you guys. I really don't think so.
Well, okay. I think the situation is having a balance,
There we go.
right?
There we go.
So what you need is sometimes I'm under the belief that both can submit to one another, right? It doesn't always have to be the female, right? Because when you get into a disagreement and you're arguing, right? At some point you're arguing to prove a point to be right. You know what I mean? And what do you gain from being right? You lose some of your relationship. You lose, you say hurtful things just to say, well, I'm right, and what do you gain from that? So, yeah, submission on both parts, the balance, right? Striking that balance where, okay, if something's bothering you, before you need to black out, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Because how many couples lie in the same bed right next to one another, but thinking completely opposite or not knowing what the person laying right next to you is thinking, right? So at night, before you go to sleep, talk about your day. Because sometimes, right, it's not necessarily things that are going on inside. Sometimes it's external stuff. You work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12-hour days. You're tired. The way things are now in the lifestyle we live, everything is rush, rush, rush. I need this report. I need it by the end of the day. I need you to do this over the weekend. And then you go home and you got a family. And they have needs. So it's like maybe you feel you're being pulled in two opposite directions. And you know what? Say that. Say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to need you to give me a little bit of space and some time. Because I just got so much going on at work. Okay. But I think a big one for men, and if the fellas out there listening, if my statement is incorrect, please call and let me know. But I think for a lot of men, I think that men believe that they are not prioritized, that they fall behind a lot of other people and organizations. Like, you're behind the children, okay, because the children, they of course need their mama, got that. But then sometimes you feel like you're prioritized behind work, right? Like work is more important, then sometimes it might even be the girlfriends, like you're out with them when we could be spending quality time alone. So I think that a lot of guys sometimes feel like they are not prioritized correctly. Like, they fall, in terms of priority, it might be third or fourth on the list, right? And, it becomes a problem for you.
But guess what, Ron? Women feel the same way. In this conversation that I was having with people about this topic, we were talking about a woman who practiced infidelity in her marriage, and she had everything. She had everything she wanted. But in turn for the red bottoms and the Gucci bags and the Louis bags, and he was never at home because he was working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it came time to discuss her infidelities, she blamed it on him never being there.
Mm-hmm.
She felt neglected or whatever. And my response was, and I'm a woman, my response was, well, you knew he worked a lot when you met him. Like, you knew that unless he's somebody that's just an investor and he's just sitting at home collecting money, in order for you to be afforded all these things, he has to go to work. He has to work.
Mm-hmm.
And usually people who make astronomical amounts of money, they usually put in astronomical amounts of work.
Right. Makes sense.
So you know this when you married him, and you know, I don't understand what a woman is looking for. You have to ask yourself, like right in the beginning, am I looking for the finances and the material things, or am I looking for time? Right? You have to ask yourself these questions. But within that comes a certain level of maturity in a woman where she knows herself and she's taking the time to get to know herself and what she wants and what she doesn't want. Then she could probably answer that question. But where I'm going with this is that we can always find a reason to say that there's something wrong. We can always find a reason. But I think we come back to what I said to you before, which is we both want the same thing, which is the support, right? Being there for me when I need you to be there for me, and the encouragement. So that's where that piece comes in when you talk about, he comes home the same thing with that woman. She wanted to feel supported and encouraged, and she wanted to feel like he was there when she needed him to be there. But I think both sexes want that. I don't think there's any difference. Maybe how we want it may be different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we basically still really want the same thing. So I think we have to, to me, an ideal relationship equals understanding. Like you understanding me and me understanding you. When we reach that optimal level of understanding one another, that's when we accomplish the greatest relationship because we understand them. So the arguments are resolvable. At that point, we can navigate through anything because you understand me and I understand you.
And you know what? You're right. Once you understand someone, it's like math, it becomes simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's consistency and that person doesn't throw you a curveball and all of a sudden things begin to change a little bit and now there's a new wrinkle, right? And it kind of throws off the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So that can happen, because people change over time. We're not the same people we are now that we were 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we've matured, right? We've learned from our experiences and, we've grown, hopefully. And in a relationship, you hope that your partner's growing with you and you're not growing apart. And that seems to be part of the problem. People begin to grow apart.
Mm-hmm.
And when that begins to happen, I think, let's be realistic, both parties are aware of the changes. But a lot of times, because, and I'm speaking about what's called people of color, right? We have a tendency not to communicate or communicate well enough with what was going on with us, right? We have a tendency to kind of let things go. And what ultimately happens is you find a lot of couples that are together but are not happy with one another. When the changes began to happen, nobody said anything or didn't say enough, didn't do enough to try to prevent what was coming. It's like you're driving down the highway and you see brake lights in front of you and you just keep driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you're going to hit one of those cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing in relationship. You see trouble ahead and yet you don't say anything. Some people want to avoid an argument. And that happens, you know, a lot of times people are just not confrontational. So you want to avoid the argument, but what ultimately happens is there's a rift in a relationship and sometimes it can't be repaired. And I think that's the women I was talking about when I said how many would be willing, what percentage would be willing to step out. Because at that point, when the rift has become so great between the two of you, where there's no communication anymore, where there is some degree of love, but not in love, and you know you feel neglected, probably both parties feel neglected. Well, eventually you might be like, you know what, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna find some satisfaction. And I might be in a relationship only for, say, financial reasons. You know, I mean, right now we're in a tough economy, so you may not be able to afford another home or another apartment, so you're still living, you know, under the same roof, but you're living completely separate lives. And I think that happens quite often. What do you think?
What I think is that, and I really believe this wholeheartedly. Number one, in order for a relationship to last, because it's always going to be ups and downs. We're not going to always grow together at the same time. There's going to be periods in my life, right, where my growth may be accelerated momentarily, and then I may, you know, reach a place where I'm still momentarily, and you're growing. My significant other may grow, but where it becomes a lasting relationship is in our ability to stand in our commitment to one another, right? So just saying that we have to, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this took me to have this conversation again. And that's what was kind of said to me, that, you know, we have to have a commitment to one another, that no matter what kind of problems we come across, that we're committed to work it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a relationship. And then how about this piece and I didn't back up the research to see if these numbers were actually really true, but I'm going to say 80% of divorces initiated by women, right? So if 80% of divorces are really initiated by women, that's deep, right?
Yeah.
And how many people are really committed to their relationship? You know, you have to be committed with, even if you need to go in separate corners for 2 days while you work out the emotions attached to whatever may happen. Just, you know, there's that piece again, that ultimate, reaching that ultimate place in the relationship where you understand one another. You build understanding through communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
So us communicating and talking to one another enough where you've gotten to know me, I've gotten to know you, and I know based on what we've gotten to know about one another and the commitment that we've made to one another, I know you're committed 100%, you know I'm committed 100%. And so whatever it is that we encounter, or when we reach these places of individual growth, we know that we're not going to give in. We're not going to give in and surrender our relationships. We're going to be committed to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's something that is difficult nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I guess generations before us will be married 50, 60, 70 years. You know, and now, say in the past maybe 40 years, it is rare to find people who are in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
You know, marriages last 15, 20 years. Some don't even make it that long, right? And then they come to the realization that, we're not right for one another. Somewhere along the line, you know, somebody made a left turn and the other person kept going straight, right? And things began to drift, you know, and at some point, I guess you don't care anymore that the drift is there. You know, maybe you feel as if you tried hard to reach out to the other person, and they're not hearing you and you're not hearing them. So you get to the point, you know what, man, this is like work. In fact, this is harder than work. So, what are we doing? Why don't we just call it a day, right? And that happens, and for the topic we're talking about today, you wonder. Now, you said 80% of divorce is initiated by women.
That's what I was told this
Okay.
morning. Like I said, I haven't backed up that data with my own research. Usually I do a lot of reading on my own. But this was a conversation that I had right before I came into the station this morning. So I'm going to read and back up the data. But if in fact that is true, that was really profound to me, that 80% was initiated by women.
So if that's the case, it kind of begs the question, who reaches that point, that breaking point first, men or women? It's interesting. If that number is factual, if 80% is initiated by women, it kind of makes you wonder, because you always hear that, well, he left, he walked out. But is it always that way? Is it that sometimes she maybe not walked out, but checked out?
Or how about this? Maybe he walked out, maybe she checked out, but maybe these statistics come from who filed the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Who filed the paperwork doesn't have to be a reflection of who ended the marriage, or who gave up on the marriage, who stopped doing the work in the marriage is really not reflective of that. He could have been out having an affair. Maybe she just said that's it, or he walked out, he moved out, and she filed the paperwork. We don't really know. I'd have to, which I plan on doing some additional reading. But what I looked at that was even bigger than that, Ron, was that question, going back to that initial question, how many women are really satisfied and feel happy in their relationships? If 80% of women initiate the divorce, then that kind of speaks volumes to how many women are not happy in their relationship.
And it would appear that there are a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, people stay together for a number of reasons. Sometimes, and I was talking to somebody about this, and what she was saying is that there are a number of couples married or living together who have no intimate relationship whatsoever.
Mm.
I mean, they might sleep in the same bed, but they really don't seem to have a physical interest in one another anymore. And when that happens, is it likely that somebody's going to, maybe both are going to go out and do their thing?
Mm.
I mean, because let's be realistic. At home, you're not receiving any sort of intimacy. Well, that part of you is not dead. It may be dormant when you're at home, but when you get out and you're interacting with people of the opposite sex, if that is your interest, well, it may not stay dormant.
But don't you agree? I think that we reach this certain level of maturity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And self-actualization, which is really just about you. It's not about your partner, right? It's about where you are emotionally and developmentally, right? You reach this place of self-actualization, and you know that the sum and total of a relationship, or the make and break of a relationship, really doesn't boil down to sex. Even if they had sex outside of the marriage, are you really willing to, once you reach a certain level of maturity, are you really willing to throw away your marriage for the sake of, your significant other, your partner stepped outside of the marriage? I think a lot of marriages end like that, but I think once we reach a certain level of maturity, that's something that you really should sit and think about. Now, we're not talking about repeat offenders, somebody that's just a cheater all the time. But you meet so many women and men who ended a relationship, a marriage because of an infidelity, right? But again, yeah, I think it all just comes back to that one thing about the level of commitment to the relationship. Forget the marriage, because some of the marriage stuff is all legalities anyway. I'm talking about to the relationship, the commitment that you made to one another. That no matter what comes up, you're gonna work through it. I'm not gonna tap out on you. Maybe this is a season where you checked out and I'm taking it personal and I think you checked out on me. Maybe you really going through something that's going to help you reach that place of self-actualization. I don't know, because we all go through this developmental thing and this growth thing individually. That we grow as a couple, but then we grow individually too. That's just it's no way to get around that. We have to grow individually. But I think the biggest piece to the feeling satisfied in your relationship and feeling happy in your relationship is, where you are in your level of commitment. Because guess what? If you're committed to your relationship, you're going to work on satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
If you're committed to your relationship, you're going to work on happiness and communicate. And it's important for me to say, this is coming from me. I've been married twice.
Mm-hmm.
And divorced. And so guess what I could say? I'm not sure that I would ever get married again, but whoever is in my life that I would say we're committed to one another, I think this time around I would be committed for the long haul. And maybe that's why, like you guys are always teasing me, because it seems like I never make a commitment. but it's because when I do commit,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be for the long haul, because I've matured, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know the value of the people that I care about, and so I don't think I would so easily dismiss people at this point.
Okay.
And I'm a dismisser. I've been called a chronic breaker-upper.
Mm-hmm.
To be exact, that's the words they use. You're a
chronic
chronic breaker-upper.
A flight risk.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. But
She's afraid of commitment.
Oh, is that what it is, Terry?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so you said that maybe he had an affair and that maybe she just did the paperwork. Okay, so let me just defend the men for a second. Okay. So I think what a lot of men experience in a relationship, when you're dating a woman, right, before you decide to take it to the next level, intimacy is not a problem. Sex is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But once you put the ring on the finger and you say, I do, then suddenly she says, I don't anymore.
Oh my gosh.
That is a problem for a lot of men, right? Because what happens is, I got you now. I don't have to do it anymore like I did before, right? The expectation is going in when we're walking down the aisle is that things are not going to change. That what you did to get me down the aisle will keep me, down the aisle. But that begins to change, right? I get it, things happen. But that's what I meant when I said, part of what I meant when I said about men being prioritized, right? So you come home and you're dealing with a situation where, okay, I don't feel like it tonight. I got a headache. Well, you know what? There's dishes in the sink, and I just don't feel sexy when there's dishes in the sink. Really. I mean, and some women have that situation going on where, They need the sum and total where, the house got to be clean, the kids got to be asleep, the moon has to be blue, the TV got to be on channel 4.
Oh my God.
Right? In order to get into the mood, right? It was easy when you were dating. Yes, there was less responsibility during that time, right? And you didn't live together. Sometimes you don't live together. But now there's responsibility. There's the home, the children, and all the things associated with that. So that's where men might feel pushed down the totem pole, right? Where they're not getting that intimacy anymore, right? And I mean, honestly, I'm going to ask you this question honestly.
Mhm.
Do you think women purposely withhold sex or intimacy as a way of, say, maybe punishing him, or maybe it's a tool of control? What do you think?
I think that there are some, because I got to answer honestly.
Okay.
I think there are some women who do use that as a tool. But I think in addition to that, there are women who it's hard to get turned on when you've turned me off,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, we need to reach a place where we at least throw the white handkerchief in the middle of the room,
Mm-hmm.
so that we reach a place where we call it a truce, right? And then we try to reconcile the relationship. Not that we split up, but that's even an argument. I mean, how do you get, and that's the part you see, men can do that without any attachment whatsoever. A man can go get into bed with a woman and get busy all night and get up in the morning and walk away without any emotional attachment at all.
Mm-hmm.
But women are emotional. So if you've turned me off and we arguing and stuff, how do you expect the average woman
Mm-hmm.
to be turned on when you just turn them off? So I think that that's where men say, "Oh, she's withholding." And again, I think some women do, because I've spoken to women that said, "Oh, I'm not giving him none,"
Mm-hmm.
or so some women do, but I think more women just find it harder to get turned on when you already turned them off.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
fair, right?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
That's fair. I think we're having a pretty fair conversation today.
I think, we're like Fox News. We are fair and balanced.
And I don't know why no one's calling in. It's just our luck. Maybe it's too early. They don't
It
want
might
to
be
talk
too
about
early.
this.
It might be too early.
Yeah, maybe they don't want to talk about this early in the morning.
Because this is a heavy topic, right? It is. And when you said you had a conversation on your way in this morning, I'm thinking, who's getting up that time of morning having a conversation that heavy?
Somebody that wanted their point to be
Okay.
heard.
But then, see, you an early riser,
Yes.
right? See, me, Saturday morning, if I'm not here at the studio, I'm probably still asleep,
Oh, no.
right? Yeah, I'm probably still asleep, because, normally I work Monday through Friday, right? So Saturday is your day of rest and relaxation,
Mhm.
right? And, I find that sometimes, and it's just me personally, right? Sometimes I just like to just lay in the bed,
Mhm.
with my wife, right?
Mhm.
You
You want her to just be quiet and watch television?
no, we could, have a, conversation in the morning,
As soon as she's ready, or do you just need her for a little while to be? Is there some point in this just chilling out that you just want her to be quiet and watch television?
Well, okay, honestly, it all depends, right? If she starts going in on a topic and I'm trying to watch something, I kind of give her that eye, like, like, hey, I'm trying to catch, like, what's going on here, right? But there's a balance, right? I mean, we just celebrated our 31st year last month, right?
You guys have reached the ultimate place of understanding one another.
Well,
That's how you reach the 31st year.
well, yeah, we had our bumps in the road, right? But eventually, we kind of figured it out, right?
Yes.
Right, right. And I say kind of because, it takes work, right? Constant work, right? I guess after you get to 31 years, it's a little bit easier, right? You're not starting out, right? Trying to understand one another. You've been in this for a while, right? So you kind of have it down.
I think at 31 years, it's not hard for you to figure it out now. But I think what's more important is not what you're doing at 31 years, but how you've reached 31 years. And I was married for 21 years to Chris and Craig's dad. But I think you have to ask yourself, I would say, you guys were committed
Mm-hmm.
to the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
You were committed.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't give up. You just said you guys you hit bumps along the way,
Absolutely.
but you didn't throw in the towel.
No.
And she wasn't who I must say she's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
She didn't say I'm going to join that 80%.
No, she didn't.
She didn't say I'm going to join that 80% and go
Right.
out for divorce. So you guys were committed. You communicated, right?
Mhm.
Because you said we figured it out. You had to have figured it out through communication,
Mhm.
right? And then ultimately what happened is one day you woke up and you reached that optimal level of understanding one another,
Mhm.
right? So you know that, and understanding, what is understanding, Ron? Because we got to help them out. What does it mean to say we've reached that optimal place of understanding?
I'll tell you, for me, right after all of these years, and it's been probably close to 37 years that we've been together, I got to the point, or we reached a point where I could finish her sentences and she could finish mine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to ask her what she's thinking. I know.
Mm-hmm.
I look at her and I know what she's thinking. I know when she's happy. I know when she's not happy. If we're out shopping, say for clothes for her, because you already know. I already know from the look she don't like it, right? If I buy her something, I know automatically. Let me take this back to the store, right? But it took a lot of time, and for me, when I decided to get married, I said I'm only gonna do this once,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm going to do whatever it takes because I'm only gonna do it once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there were bumps in the road. There was a lot of times where you say maybe we should throw in the towel, but you realize that I may be unhappy at the moment, right? But I think I'm still better off where I am
Mm-hmm.
than going out and starting all over
You're
again.
better together.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about what you just said, and this may be just the clinician in me, because this is what I heard. I have to give you back what I heard based on what we've been discussing. You said when I decided to get married, I made a commitment. I said this I'm gonna do it once, and that's it. So you went in committed, right, to do the work. You went in saying I'm only doing this one time,
One time.
right? And then you know what else you said? That was so profound, because in the beginning of the show, you mentioned how women, we're quiet, and then when you say what's wrong, they expect you to know what's wrong. But guess what you said? You said the ultimate place of understanding my wife is she doesn't have to say anything. I could look at her, I could finish her sentence, and I could look at her and tell what she's thinking. So then it's not that desire of that woman that's sitting there and saying, you should know what's wrong. Not that far-fetched.
No,
What
it's
she's
not.
really saying is, I want us to reach that place where we have ultimate understanding, and you know me and I know you, and then you'll know when I'm not happy.
Right.
But guess what? Not just you'll know when I'm not happy, you'll know how to make me happy. So you kind of clarified that for yourself, bro.
Well, yeah, what I mean, and again, it took a lot of work, took a lot of effort,
Yes.
right? Because coming together, two hearts, two, minds coming together.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some clashes at times,
Mhm.
right? But you can get over them. And, it's unfortunate that, because I wanted some sisters to call in today and just to get their feedback. But I guess this is a topic that folks have to warm up to, right? Because this can get deep, right?
And they have to be willing to be honest and not be afraid to be honest.
Mhm.
Because guess what? Them calling in and being transparent could cause a big argument in their home today.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're not happy?
Right. And you know what? It in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't, because it kind of let this brother know what's going on, right?
Mhm.
And what areas you need to work on, and some things that can be fixed before it's too late to fix them. But our time has drawn to an end. When you're in a good conversation, the time just flies by.
Mhm.
And this is a conversation that we could go on with.
Yeah, you could.
And you know what? We're going to have to come back and revisit this. Maybe we'll tweak it a little bit, right? But we'll come back and we'll have this discussion again. Because I think that, for people who are listening to us, I think some of what we said is going to resonate with some people, right? Because there's some people right now trying to figure out their relationship and where they stand in a relationship.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate that some people may not feel comfortable enough in a relationship to call in and say what's going on. Because you know what? You said something, right? People want to be heard, right?
Mhm.
A woman just doesn't want to sit there and just be like a piece of furniture.
Mhm.
She has feelings, she has emotions, and she needs to express that. And if you don't feel it in your relationship, where you feel comfortable enough going to that man and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, then maybe you could call in and just let it out and be heard. So we're going to have to come back, have to circle back on this and talk about it again. Like I said, we'll tweak it a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh.
I think we need to look at the fact that, let's talk about it again. Let's look at this proposed 80%
Mm-hmm.
of women who are initiating divorce. And then how about this? Let's just explore. That's what I really like women to call in about. Like, what is it that makes you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Is a woman's happiness list as long as you men proclaim it to be?
That would be a good topic,
Yeah.
because again, a lot of folks are lying in bed right next to one another, but don't know what the other person is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to circle back on this. We're going to talk about this again. If you didn't feel comfortable enough to talk about it this time, give us a call next time and just share your input. Don't suffer in silence. Talk about it. So for Roman and I, we wish you a happy weekend, enjoyable weekend, and we'll see you again next Saturday.
Yeah. Love, peace, and hair grease, people.
All right.